Welcome to the West Indian Women Network. I am Priscilla Ramtran, the founder here in the United States, and I'm here with one of my most favorite people in the land. So please introduce yourself and your work.
Sure. Good morning. Well, where I'm at in New Jersey, it's morning. Wherever you are, good day. My name is Rhonda Auguste. And in terms of my background and my career, I'm the founding executive director of an amazing organization. And that's how Miss Priscilla and I got connected, called the White Foundation in Newark, New Jersey. And I met this amazing woman years ago when she earned an opportunity from our program to attend a very elite boarding school. So it's such a privilege and honor to be able to share the screen with her. I love her dearly and admire all of the great things that she does.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I love you dearly too, and I always feel like I'm 12 when I'm in your presence.
That makes me about what, 22? I'll take it.
Right,
Maybe
right.
25.
That's right. So you are an educator. Tell
Yes.
us what motivated you to pursue a career in education and more so in the scholarship field.
Well, a lot of this is because of my own personal experience. My family and I immigrated from Trinidad back in the early 70s. In 1970, as a matter of fact, I immigrated with my mom. My mom was an amazing woman. She raised 7 children, although some of them were young adults by the time, but still, imagine coming into a brand new country as a single parent and with 6 sons, and me, I'm the youngest, I'm the baby girl,
Oh,
in a brand new country. And we moved to Harlem in New York, and it was such a blessing because Harlem still does have so many great opportunities. And it was perfect for us because of my attending the public school I attended in 6th grade. My teacher took aside 10 of us and introduced us to the world of private schools because I was going to a public school in Harlem. I was only 7 years old when I came up from Trinidad.
mm-hmm.
And I earned an opportunity, like my students that I serve, I earned an opportunity to attend a very elite day school called the Spence School in the Upper East Side. And at the time, I was the only woman of color in my grade. Oh, girl, again, I was 7th grader, so I was a girl, not a woman.
Young lady, like you call us.
So I was the only young woman of color in the 7th grade. And I remember how challenging that was coming into that environment where it's predominantly Caucasian women who attended that school and really feeling, kind of out there, so to speak. So for my program, for the White Foundation, what I tell my students is I don't want them to have to endure the challenges that I endure transitioning from public school to private school, coming from a predominantly Black and Hispanic environment to a predominantly white environment. All of those comes with certain challenges. And I didn't have anyone to take me aside to say, hey, hey, it's all good. You're fine the way you are. What
Right.
happens when you're put into a new environment like that, you tend to start looking at yourself, even at the age of 12, 13, 12, 13, questioning yourself, like, am I good enough? Can I handle this? And no one was telling me there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that the public school you came from didn't have the same opportunities as the school that you were transitioning to. So for me, as an executive director, I want to make sure that my students, when they transition into their boarding schools, they are prepared academically, emotionally, socially, because it's not easy when you're a child and emerge in a new environment and so much is coming at you and no one to guide you. It's challenging. So that's what drives me, is my own personal experience to make sure that my students don't have what I went through. Now, it all ended up pretty well, I would say, but it wasn't easy my first couple of years as a 7th grader and an 8th grader. I was so happy when we had some more diversity in 9th grade. So that was awesome. And I was able to really get a good sense of my identity in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And it positioned me well for my life. So it worked out well. I just feel I'm a big believer in terms of philosophies is living life smart, not hard. And I tell my students to learn early on how to live life in a powerful way. And it doesn't have to be hard. Like, don't buy into what our society says, like a hard life is a great life. And no, I don't believe in that. I believe in living a simple life, a peaceful life, a life that's rewarding, a life that's fulfilling. That to me is what life is about. You don't have to stress out to say, like stress shouldn't be a banner of success. And I feel that in our society, that's kind of what they promote. With me and my students, it's very different. No, live life to the fullest. And I just told them on their final day of our program this summer, I said, work hard, but play hard. So we will challenge them at a high level, but they have to find time for themselves, and they have to find times just to breathe and relax, because life is stressful enough. So
Absolutely. And we, your students and
yes,
former students, are so grateful for you paving this way, especially from your own experience.
right.
For me, coming to the United States, there was that challenge with the Trinidadian accent.
Mhm.
And it took me some time to adjust, and it took the other students some time to really say, "What are you saying?" Did you have any experiences like that?
Boy, did I ever. So coming in as a 7-year-old into the second grade, into Harlem. Again, this was in 1970. Harlem is very different now. The Harlem now is very,
Right.
very different from the Harlem that I experienced. And boy, it was such a important part of who I am as a person, and it's actually helped shape me to be the adult that I am. So
Mhm.
I remember distinctly, we were in the playground, and suddenly the students were circling around me because I had a funny accent. I looked different. I sounded, I looked different. I sounded different. But I remember distinctly I was in the playground, and these kids were circling. I said, okay, what's going on here? I didn't know they were circling around me.
Oh.
I just didn't know. So then suddenly one of the students says to me or asks me the question, what are you?
Mm.
She said, this is what the student told me. Well, you're not black because look at your hair, and you're not Puerto Rican because you don't speak Spanish. Now, these are 7-year-olds saying this to me,
Right.
and they were ready to fight because I was so different from what
Hmm.
they were used to. Back then in Harlem, you were either African American or Puerto
Hispanic.
Rican. There wasn't even
Mhm.
diversity within the Hispanic culture. There wasn't even diversity within the Black culture. That was kind of the choices. And then I show up looking a little bit different, sounding different. So I was targeted. But what saved me, and to this day, I don't know what it was, but there was a voice from somewhere that said,
Mm.
don't mess with her because her brother is in the 6th grade. So then I automatically flipped it and said, oh, yeah, that's right. So I took on a lot of the mannerisms and style for my own defense, and
Right.
became very much about my Blackness, even though I may not look it as much, but I felt it. It's in my core. I am who I am. And I took
Right.
that on. And my brother saved me because, true story, he's a darkened complexion and he had an afro. So no one questioned his identity. They automatically
Mm.
assumed he was Black. With me, because I was so different, they're like, I don't know who you are. And so that
Right.
voice saved me from getting beat up that day in the playground. And
I
this
was
was,
gonna say it was your Trini jeans, just saying, "Don't mess with me."
but it empowered me to learn. I had to learn the lay of the land really quickly. And when you're an
Right.
immigrant, you have to do that. You have to learn the lay of the land. Now, here's the other challenge, though. My family was wondering what happened to me because I took on a lot of the African American mannerisms and style, and that's just who I was. It became a part of me because I was young, and now they're wondering what happened to her. Like, where's the little
Right.
Trinity girl that we had from Trinidad?
Aw.
But my Trinidad culture is still very, very, very much a part of me. But it's like you just have to adapt to the world that you're in. But I know, Priscilla, you maybe heard me say this many times. I'm all about identity. Like
Yes.
for me, for my young students now, I tell them, be proud of your identity. Like culture is so, so critical. Like I'm so proud to be a Trinidadian. And I wear my colors proudly.
Yes, you
Every time
do.
you see my car, you'll see my flag. That's a given. But I tell my students the same thing, because you need to be grounded in life. And I'm a believer that identity is critical to grounding a person. Like you have to know who you are to be grounded. And so I'm so grateful to have had the experiences I've had. I've had, being raised in Trinidad initially, and also growing up in Harlem.
Mhm.
That's what grounded me and helped me to really zoom in on my identity. Like I'm very clear on who I am. I don't care what people may think I am, but I know who I am. I know what
That's
I am.
right.
But I tell my students that when they go to and we only work with boarding schools, as you know, because Ms. Prillo, as I said, went to a very elite boarding school. So we only work with boarding schools. So when students have to transition into those environments, it's so important that they know who they are and they have a great sense of self to remain grounded. Because if you're not, you'll be floating in the wind. And where does that take you? So I'm a big believer in that. So.
Awesome. Yes, I remember being the only Trinidadian young lady on campus back in the 90s, and it was eye-opening. And having you and the staff there to support us and remind us
Yeah.
what we're there for was
That's
so important to really just that support that you all offer and the family that we feel like we belong to at the White Foundation. It doesn't end, it doesn't stop.
yeah.
That's fantastic. So a little birdie told me you have a competitive edge.
Very much so.
Tell me about that. What brought that on?
Life, just life
Mhm.
experiences. It's important to thrive in life, not just survive. I'm a believer in that as
I
well.
love
I'm all
that.
about living. I'm all about, living an extraordinary life, maximizing each of my days. That's really critical to me. So haven't been, again, and I tell my students this too, every life experience is an experience that you can learn from and you can grow from. So like that what happened in that playground was critical for me in terms of helping me better understand the world I was in that moment and who
Right.
I was and who I am as a person. But I also learned early on, especially when I transitioned to private school, competition was on. Like I realized very early when I went to the Spence school, you better have your stuff together. And I was also an athlete when I was younger. So when you grow up with six brothers, that kind of comes with the territory. I
Right.
was the one who wanted to go play soccer in the field, but I could barely reach the top of the table tennis, but I still want to go out there and play soccer. So when you grow up with six brothers, they did not spoil me. People, it's a myth. People think, oh, you must have been spoiled. The exact opposite. Boy, did they build
They
up me.
put you out there.
I had to fight for my rights. In fact, I was just sharing with my cousins recently. I told them the story how my brothers were always dominating, right? And I remember one time, and I was just a little 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and I said to them, because I was so mad, I said,
Oh.
it's not fair that everyone else has one father. I have six. And I remember
Oh.
that. So I had to fight for my rights in my own household. Like they wanted to control me. And I was like, no,
Mm,
you are not going to control me. I had that in me from the beginning. So
good.
every stage of my life, I had to compete. I had to compete on whether it was playing basketball on the court or being in a predominantly white institution where you had to stand up for yourself and you had to compete at a high level. I took it on. And wasn't easy at times because it can feel a little bit isolating sometimes, especially if you don't have others who can relate to your experience.
Right.
So that's why it's also important at the foundation that we do a lot of talking, a lot of rap sessions to empower our young people for them to understand you're not the only one going through what you're going through. That's dangerous. If you feel like you're the only one, that's when you self-implode. But there's power in numbers. So when you come together, you are empowered. And I believe in that very much so because I know of my own experience. I had to figure out a lot of this on my own. But my mom was also an amazing woman. So I could always share some ideas, get her feedback, but she hadn't lived my experience. So
Right.
she could only help me, but so much. So a lot of it I had to figure out. But I remember distinctly senior year at my school, and I was blessed to get accepted to Harvard University.
I
And
was going to bring that up later.
I'll tell you how this fits in. So I remember it was one of those classic situations where I was on the elevator. Only seniors were able to use the elevator. So it was a distinction. It was an honor. So I happened to be on the elevator and it came onto the floor and the young ladies were talking about me. And they were like, can you believe Rhonda Auguste got into Harvard University? It was one of those classic situations.
What?
The door had opened up and I said, and so what if I did? And then
Right.
the door closed. So again, all of those experiences help you to understand, oh, baby, you better have your stuff together because they may be, not they, just those young ladies in particular, but people in general, they may be smiling with you in your face, but do they really have your back? Like, they're all nice to be friendly with me, but God forbid she gets into Harvard University. Now, one of my white counterparts got into Harvard. I'm sure there was never any doubt or question about her acceptance to Harvard. But me, the brown-skinned young lady from an island that had an accent, getting into Harvard, oh baby. So they were talking about you. But one of my things my mom always, empowered me with was because she had a challenging life growing up where there was a lot of animosity and people just not looking out for her. She just taught us early on that you have to be, make yourself number one. First of all, she always told us you are number one. It's really important, and not in a egotistical way, but in a manner of believing in yourself. She always told us that. Each of us separately, she told us, believe in yourself. And I had to learn that and really embrace that. And that's what empowered me to be like, okay, I don't know who's going to be my friends. I didn't even know how to define friends, but at this stage of my life, that wasn't what's important to me.
Right.
I've always been mission driven. Coming from my family was always about education as a priority. So we always knew, I knew I was going to go to college somewhere. That was a given. So you don't let anything else distract you from whatever your goals are. So she instilled that in us early on about being goal oriented. And then, hey, if you're going to accomplish your goals, competition is on, because everybody's aspiring. Everybody wants to go to Harvard. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to do that. Game on. But also what she taught me too was to be humble. Like, I think that's also important. Like, I think students, because I'm not braggadocious. I wasn't bragging,
You're really not.
To school, I just worked hard. It was hard. It was hard. There wasn't an even playing field for me when I first started private school. I had to do a lot of catching up. And then when I caught up, it was like, okay, now it took me 2 years to learn the lay of the land. And then that was it. Game on. And even though I felt uncomfortable, I was painstakingly shy when I was a child. I had to get over that hurdle. I had to learn how to speak in front of others and how to communicate and how to get extra help. All of this was self-taught, but you learn early on in certain environments, competition is real, and you got to build up yourself to take on whatever comes your way. So yes, and yes, I am competitive in a healthy fashion.
Yes.
And it's not, it's not at the expense of anyone. It never is. It's more of an internal competition. Like, what can I do better? How can I do what I do better? That's the space that it comes from. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely. It did. And I love when you say game on.
Yes.
And what I also love about the foundation is not just a scholarship. You get the whole VIP package where you're open for opportunities. You are able to work together at the office with you. So, so it's not just what we think it is. It's so much more. There's so many layers to what you do. And you make each of us feel individually special. I don't know how you do it, because as a mom of two, to share your love, you share your love with hundreds and thousands. So we appreciate you so very much for everything that you've done for us and are still doing for us.
I consider myself so blessed, because I would argue I'm one of the few in this world that gets to do something that she truly enjoys. Like, to see where our organization started, to see where it is now. And my joy is from you and my alumni and my students. For me, my greatest joy is when I see a young person, when we first interview a young person, and to see them so young and so like not quite knowing what they're walking into, innocent, and then to see them evolve into these amazing adults. It is extremely joyful, and it's just I'm always so full of pride and so it is so interesting because as a young person, again, bringing my mom back into it, where she said believe in yourself. It takes a while for you to get to that point where you really do believe in yourself. It's not like it's overnight. Like someone says it to you, okay, I believe in myself. No, you have to realize sometimes it's the pain and the changes you go through that helps you to really learn who you are. And then you really start to believe in yourself. And so when I see a young person aspiring to, like, I'll give you an example. One of my graduates who is an assistant superintendent of schools here in Newark. And I remember meeting her as a 13-year-old. And then I always engage my students just to get into their head. What are you looking for? What do you want? And she said, one day I want to be superintendent of schools of Newark. So when you see that come to fruition, Oh, baby.
Yes,
It's like, yes, you know you're doing the right thing, you know you're in the right place. You have to have belief in young people, and they have to have belief in themselves. And when you put that together, that's when the magic happens. And it's not by accident that we have
right,
so many amazing success stories, because one is they trusted us as an
right.
organization and they were willing to follow our lead and trust our system. And once they are in that space, and the magic starts to happen, and even they'll be like, wow, like it's like, wow, this happened. Yeah, because we believe in you. And almost like, and I could see it in my young people. Like I'll make predictions like, you're gonna be president of the school, you're gonna
Yes,
be this, you're gonna be captain. I just know
that
from
intuition.
that's it. The qualities show up in these young people, and you're like, man, here's our philosophy as an organization. Put the right person in the right environment and they will
Hmm.
soar. And you will live an example of this, Priscilla. I
Yes,
mean, what you do, and you're so humble and you're so giving. You know, that we needed to put you in the right environment for you to discover your strength and your power. And that's
right.
what's so great about the work we do at the White Foundation.
Indeed, but having a leader like you never leave us hanging. You're
No,
always checking in, making sure
that's
we're okay. So, like you said, it is more than just academic, academic,
no,
academic. Check in
absolutely.
with your heart, check in with your mind. And
Absolutely.
having a strong leader like you
Oh, thank you.
makes us empowered to then know that it is possible. Miss Auguste can do it. So can
Absolutely.
we. And we love that about you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
You gotta believe in possibility and anything, and I
Absolutely.
do believe anything and everything is possible with the right mindset. Like again, once you're grounded, once you believe in
Mhm.
yourself, once you have a great sense of identity and know who you are and know what you're about. And then the other thing we discussed at the White Foundation, which is equally critical, is creating vision. So we
Mhm.
have our young people, our rising eighth graders, they all create vision boards. I wasn't introduced to this concept until as an adult, and how I wish
Of
someone
course.
had pointed this out to me when I was a young person. But it's so important to know where you're going. It's so important so that, and I tell my young people, because we're human, you're gonna have good days, bad days. That's just life. Okay.
Mhm.
Don't fold. It's all it is when a new experience comes up. It's a challenge. Nothing more, nothing less. But I think society creates it into this huge monster. Like, oh my God, it's like, it's the end of the world syndrome. No,
Right,
no.
that emotional weakness that's
Yes.
attached to
And all of,
dilemma.
and all of these other words are attached, the
Mhm.
psychological analysis, and oh my gosh, you're this, you're that, oh, and all of that stuff. I tell our students, get rid of that. All it
Right.
it's the
Put it
challenge.
aside.
That's
Mhm.
it. And how do you do it? What do you do with a challenge? You take it on, game on. Like, okay, let's go, let's go, let's take on this challenge, and be okay if it works. If it works, it's okay. If it doesn't work, it's still okay, because you learn from that
You learn
experience.
from it. So I have a challenge for you, my
Yes,
lady.
ma'am.
I challenge you to write your book.
I know. I know. Well, I know. I'm
Okay.
excited. I am excited that we have a documentary being completed about the foundation. So I'm excited about that, because a lot of my chapters of my book would be
Yes.
about the foundation. So I'm excited because a lot of people are now in the platform of watching documentaries and videos. So that's happening. But I know. We already, actually, as a family, we already have the title of our book, of our family
Woo!
story. It is From Ice to Ivy.
Ooh, stay tuned, viewers.
Yeah, yeah. So somebody in our family has to make it happen. Maybe me, maybe my nieces. I don't know, but it is a story to be told, because it's a story of inspiration and never giving up. My mother never gave up, and she had a lot of reasons to give up. Believe me,
Right.
she never did. So once you have her as have a person like that as an example in your life, you can't give up.
Right.
You look at her story,
Especially
like,
all that she sacrificed.
right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Leaving the Trinidad, coming here. I mean, you can never give up. I think that's something we always tell our students. Again, with each challenge is a hurdle. That's all it is. Just take it on and see where it takes you. Learn from it, grow from it, and help you become the person you need to become. So,
Absolutely. Well, my next question for you
yes.
is yesterday we were having a conversation about gender roles and being in an environment where gender roles are so strict at home, but then transitioning to the boarding school environment where you do have the opportunity to really focus on you and who you are and what you believe.
Mhm.
How do you approach such situations?
For me, it is one word: empowering. I mean,
Hmm.
my role as an executive director, that's how I see my role as a director of this foundation, is to empower our young people and empower our families. And I really
Hmm.
do take that on, take that to heart. And granted, the challenges that someone is facing, or whether emotional or cultural challenges, it varies, right?
Hmm.
But for what happened, what we was discussing yesterday, yes, growing up as a Trinidadian woman, growing up with 6 older brothers, you could imagine. What I say I had to fight to have a voice, I did. I had to. They were amazing brothers, loving brothers, but they could have just completely dominated all the time. I had to fight for my rights. I remember, Priscilla, I remember going back, one of my times going back to Trinidad, and I remember being a little bit sad because I realized how patriarchal our society was. And I'll give you a quick example. So I was married, and my ex-husband is African American, and we were in Trinidad. And I remember my cousin, female cousin, saying, "Hey, um, my ex-husband wanted breakfast or something." So I'm like, "Okay." So
What you telling me for?
right, he could go get some breakfast. And she was like, "Rhonda, aren't you going to prepare whatever, whatever, whatever?" I'm like, "No, because he's an adult. He could take
Hmm.
care of himself." But it was very eye-opening for me because I realized how,
Stigmatized.
she was stuck in that time. Like there's a certain role, responsibility, or what have you. I never, I mean, okay, maybe, okay, if I was, my mom always said, when in a room, do like the Romans do. So maybe, okay, fine, I'll go dish his food out and give him his plate. I mean, but here's the deal. I don't mind dishing out the food, but don't expect that I have to do it if,
Right.
I choose.
Especially because you're a female.
Right. So it was very eye-opening, and I love our culture, but boy, just some of it I find is way heavy in terms of, I don't feel that women are respected at a high level in terms of, some fashion, some aspects of our culture, which I love my Trinidadian culture. But going back at that point, at that time, it was eye-opening to say, wow. Again, coming back to what I was saying about empowering, for me, it's about being exposed. That's another critical part of who we are as an organization, why we
Yes.
only work with boarding schools, because our young people need to be exposed to what is possible, what's out there, to learn the world. And you do that in a boarding school environment. And so, the messaging is really important. It's consistent. It's about building you up as a person, believing in yourself.
Yes.
And as a woman, it can be, there's some extra barriers that we may have to overcome. I remember working, my first job working at a boarding school, and I, again, only adult female of color in my first year. And I had to deal with it. I had to deal with the little comments, the little, it was definitely a male oriented community. And I just had, here's another thing too. You have to have an outlet. So for me, I had a really
Hmm.
great male friend who actually was he's Bayesian from Barbados. And he and I
Oh,
became very tight because you had to kind of grin and bear it during a day. And then I would go to him and like, I can't believe I'm dealing with this stuff.
right.
I dealt with racism, I dealt with sexism, and ageism, because I was young and faculty was older. So I dealt with all of those. And I just learned how to adapt. And again, here's the key. For me, I was goal oriented. This wasn't going to be
Right.
my life forever. My goal was to increase the diversity on campus. My role was to recruit students of color for that particular school. And so, in spite of all that stuff that was circling around me, I let it roll off my shoulder because my focus, I was there for a purpose. And I told
Right.
my students, I'm up here because of you. Like, let me be clear. I'm up here because of you. I'm up here to give other students opportunities and access. So there are times when you have to, as long as you know what you're about and what you're going after, The other stuff becomes frivolous. So when you,
Right.
but I would use him. He was my sounding board to make sure am I overreacting? Like, did I just hear this? Did they just say that? And he will help me to come back to reality. And then he could say, and we were both like, we know it exists.
Right.
I'm not going to allow it to stop me from doing what I feel is important, is to give these young people access to an incredible education. So I say all that to say that in life, as long as you know what you're going after, like my mom, she knew what she was going after. She chose to live in Harlem because she knew that, just in her core, that was where it was going to be the best place for us in terms of access and opportunity. And so even though she was getting it, oh, why are you living there? Oh, it's not this. Oh, it's not that. Da, 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 da. She didn't let that stop her from doing
Right.
what she had to do. And that would be my message, is that know what you're going after, and whatever comes your way, let it roll off your shoulders. If it's not going to make a difference anyway, who cares what people think? Who cares what people say? As long as you know who you are and what you are about, that is really all that matters. And everything else is just frivolous stuff that, okay, fine. So I've dealt with isms all through
Mm-hmm.
my life, but I don't let it stop me. If anything, it empowers me,
Right.
because I want to make sure, especially I just can't even just say my young women, my young people, period, that they know that they can do whatever they want to. Once you make
Absolutely.
a choice, don't, and there are going to be some stuff along the way that may try to distract you. You move away the distractions, stay focused on what it is that you're aiming to do. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. So,
Indeed. Well, thanks, Miss Yvonne, for paving that
yes.
way and that path. And thanks, Miss Auguste, for continuing to pave that way for us, because I would have never imagined being a Trinidadian girl attending boarding school, nonetheless, all the way in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there at the all girls environment is where I really found my voice. Now, keep in mind, I kind of fought it at the beginning, but you said, stick it out, you got this.
Absolutely.
And that is where I've grown and got to
Yeah.
know myself. And now I have a huge network of international women
Exactly.
who are doing amazing things. So thank you again.
And I want to acknowledge you too, because our motto at the White Foundation is making a world of difference. That's
Yes.
not by accident, that's intentional. And we applaud you, and we applaud our other alums for just being difference makers. You're making a difference. Like, when you share what you share, somebody's being positively impacted by who you are and what you do.
Hmm.
That's huge. That is
Indeed.
huge. So when you look at it, it's all about duplication and the ripple effect. If one person can have a ripple effect and many others do the same, we could really make a difference in a big way. And I feel like that's who we are, and that's what we do, is about making it is all about making a world of difference, for
And you
sure.
do. You really do. You
Thank
make
you.
such a difference. You're welcome. Of course, you'll have to come back and continue
My
this
pleasure.
conversation with us,
Sure.
share what you're up to. Do you have a final message for our viewers?
You know, live life to the fullest. We've just gone through we continue to go through some difficult times, and that's just life. It is.
Mhm.
But really, when I wake up in the morning, I'm truly grateful for everything I have. And I would just say, live an extraordinary life. We only have one chance on this earth. That's it. There's no like, okay, we'll give you another chance. And no, this is it. So I'm all about maximizing not only my life experience, but those around me, because why not? Life is too short. Enjoy it. That's what I would say.
Right. Absolutely beautiful message. And you've always taught us to reach back and help
Yes.
those come forward
Most
with us.
definitely. It's not any, if you're not helping others, then what is it all for? Like, really, if you're not making a difference in the life of someone else, where's the joy? So,
Absolutely. You are my joy. I
oh,
love
thank
you
you, my
bunches.
love. Love you immensely.
So say bye-bye to everybody till next time.
Bye. So
Thank
nice to
you
meet all of
so
you
much.
virtually.
Absolutely.